Okay, everyone, so let us carry on. And just to remind you, we're looking at what is called the six recollections on the Buddhist path. It's a standard group of six, and it always starts off with the recollection of the Buddha, and then comes the recollection of the Dhamma as number two. So we're going to carry on these recollections. We're going to go quite a bit faster from now on, because once you have spoken about the Dhamma about the Buddha in great detail, it sort of also encompasses to a large extent the Dhamma and the Sangha at the same time. So coming to the Dhamma, this is what the sutta says, where the Buddha says how the recollection of Dhamma is supposed to happen. And he says, furthermore, a noble disciple recollects the teaching here. The teaching is well explained by the Blessed One, visible in this very life, immediately effective, inviting expectation, relevant, so that sensible people can know it for themselves. When a noble disciple recollects the teaching, the mind is not full of desire, ill will, and confusion. And then it goes all the way, like it did before, through all the various mental qualities of joy and happiness, all the way to samadhi, and then you're called again a noble disciple who lives in balance among people who are unbalanced, who lives untroubled among people who are troubled. They've entered the stream of the teaching and developed the recollection of the Dhamma, of the teaching. So this is again how the Buddha recommends that we recall the Dhamma. So, it's a continuation of that famous verse, iti piso bhagava, this is svakato dhammo, etc., akaliko, or ehipasiko, whatever. So that's how it goes. It starts off by saying the teaching is well explained by the Buddha. This is svakato, bhagavata dhammo, well expounded, well explained. And this is one of the things that you find in the suttas in so many places, that the Buddha puts a lot of emphasis in getting the explanation of the suttas right. Sometimes you see the Buddha goes off in retreat, like for 3 months at the time or whatever, and there's this feeling that the Buddha himself is kind of maybe trying to figure out how to explain these teachings. After his awakened experience at Bodh Gaya, he stays in Bodh Gaya for several weeks afterwards, according to the I don't know if I should call it legend, but according to how it is explained, the narrative found in the Udana. And he sits at the various trees, and he so what is he doing? Well, I reckon that what he may be doing is trying to understand how to verbalize, how to articulate this insight he has had. Maybe, possibly. It's hard to really know exactly what is either that, or he was just kind of chilling and enjoying himself. I'm not sure. It's hard to be entirely clear. But he obviously spent some time in solitude, and I think that would have been times when he enjoyed meditation, but also maybe tried to think how to articulate this profound insight he had had. And so this idea that it is well explained, I think it is an important part of Buddhism. It means that when we read the word of the Buddha, we can take it to be pretty literal. He means things the way they are. He doesn't exaggerate. He doesn't kind of lead you astray. The words are carefully chosen. There's an overall hanging together of this teaching, an overall coherence. One of the things that I have often found in Buddhism is that people often prefer to read the teachings of all other teachers except the Buddha. They read anyone except the Buddha. As somehow the Buddha's teaching is not so relevant. And what they say very often, and there is of course some truth to that, what they say very often is that the teachings of the Buddha are so hard to understand, but modern teachers, the way they speak, the way they write, it's so, beautiful, and it flows really nicely, and nice stories in there, opening the door of your heart, full of nice stories. I have to be careful what I say about my own teacher. So, and of course there is some truth to that, because modern writers, they write in a modern way, the way we are used to reading things. But actually, as far as I'm concerned, when you really start to dig into the Dhamma, really try to understand the deeper aspects of these teachings, things to do with samadhi, things to do with awakening experiences, with deep insight and all of these things, it is actually far more articulate, far more precise, far more coherent, far easier to understand in the suttas. Many modern teachers, when they really look at what they're saying, often it's actually very hard to understand. You read it and it kind of sounds nice. You don't look at it carefully, but if you look at it carefully, actually, what they're really talking about is very not really clear at all. Whereas in the suttas, even there, sometimes you might say it's not clear, but it's far clearer than almost any other contemporary teacher. So for that reason, I actually prefer to read the suttas. The overall coherence, the overall understanding. Whereas modern teachers often contradict themselves all over the place, the suttas are much more, hold together much more. It is well explained by the Buddha. So that is one of many things that really attract me to the suttas. And then it says it is visible in this very life. This is sanditthiko. In other words, you can experience it right here and now. You don't have to wait till after you die to find out whether the teachings were right or not. Whether you believed in the right or the wrong God. Oops, I believed in the wrong God. Okay, I'm in trouble. This is the problem with some of these. If you take some of these theistic ideas too literally, then it gets very difficult, because if you choose the wrong God, then you're in trouble. And you don't really know until you die very often. It's immediately visible, akaliko. This is a synonym for visible in this very life. You don't have to wait for a time in the future to discover these things. You can discover them here and now. This is kind of the great thing about the Dhamma again. And these two things together, that is visible here and now, is actually quite interesting. There is a sutta, which actually the sutta after this one, which I have included here, called the Sammiddhi Sutta, which is a very kind of sweet little sutta, and I recommend you to read it if you have the chance. But I'm just going to summarize it now, because I realize it's just too much information to go through everything. And this is about really this whole idea of things being visible in this very life. And this is about this monk called Sammiddhi. And he has just bathed, had the bath in one of these hot springs. And this happens to be the hot spring in Rajagaha, which is there even now in the present day. And he comes out of the hot springs and kind of drying himself, and in one robe or whatever. And then as he just finished his bath, this Devata comes. Devata here, obviously, in this case, must be like a female deity. And she comes to him and she says to him, "Why are you a monk?" And this is the tempter. Right? This story is really about kind of this idea of temptation, I suppose, in the sutta guys. And he says, and then this deity, she says to him, "Well, you are a young man. You are still in the prime of life." I don't know how old he was, maybe in his 20s or something. Become a monk as very young. And why are you wasting your time in the robes when you could enjoy yourself in the world? Maybe it's a good point. Why am I wasting my time in robes? I wonder. Maybe this is a bad idea. And then she says to him, "These things that you are seeking for on the spiritual path, they are far in the future. Jhanas, nibbanas, you don't even know what they are. Somewhere in the future. Why are you wasting your time doing things that you will attain sometime far away in the future, whereas the sensual pleasures, they are available right here and now. You just have to go out, disrobe, find yourself a girlfriend, eat nice food in the evening, enjoy all the entertainment that is available, and that is all available right here and now, and you're doing this stuff for the future." And then Sammiddhi replies. He says, "Actually, no, it's the other way around. It is the Dhamma that is available here and now, and it is essential pleasures that are always about the future." And it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Which one of these is right? They both seem to be right in a certain way, maybe. Which one of them is right? And I remember I asked this question once. I was sometimes, as a monk, you travel all over the place, and I was in Indonesia. In Indonesia, I usually get these really large crowds coming together, sometimes many hundreds of people, even more. And so this was a large crowd sitting there, and there was this man, young man, very young man, sitting on the front bench, yeah, just kind of opposite me here. So I told this story, and I asked him, well, who is right? Is the monk right, or is the devata right? And he says, yeah, the devata is right. That's what he said. Enjoy the sensual pleasures. Yeah, they are available here and now. Yeah, this kind of Dhamma stuff is always far off in the future. Yeah. But of course, no, the monk is actually right. And this is kind of interesting, one of those paradoxes of Buddhism, yeah, which is kind of interesting to investigate, because it then allows you to really understand these things in a deeper way. Because the truth about the sensual pleasures, if you look at them, they're always craving that comes with them. Even in the middle of the enjoyment of sensual pleasures, yeah, like you're eating your food and you're kind of already on the next spoon before you finish chewing this one. Kind of, you know what it's like, yeah, it's always about craving, always about more, never really being satisfied, never being content with what you have. Craving is always involved with it. That is why it is like the charcoal pit, that beautiful simile of the Buddha. So it's always in the future. You never reach a point where it's satisfying. You never reach a point where you can just enjoy it in the present moment. Always moving on and on, without end in sight. Whereas the Dhamma, when the Dhamma works well for you, and the idea, of course, is that if you practice the Dhamma in the right way, then at every moment in your life, you can enjoy the fruits of that. If you are kind to someone right here and now, if you give rise to a kind thought or a compassionate thought in your mind, straight away you can feel the goodness that comes from that, the satisfaction, the contentment, even the joy that comes from that right here and right now. You don't have to wait for the results in the future. And that joy and happiness that you experience is a joy and happiness that goes against craving. There isn't really any desire and craving going with that. So you actually, of course, we cannot always experience it, because sometimes the mind is clouded by defilements and problems. But if you get it right, the potential is always there behind the surface. All you have to do is turn your mind in the right direction, and the mind becomes peaceful. The mind experiences joy and happiness. The Dhamma is always available in this way. And then you take it deeper and deeper, and then eventually you realize in this very life the Nibbana, the jhanas, all of these marvelous things that arise from these things, the insights. So it is the Dhamma that is immediately effective, and sensory pleasures that are always in the future, never satisfying, always moving on, always keeping you restless, always keeping you agitated. So have a look at that sutta with the Samidhi later on and see what you think about it. Then it says inviting inspection, ehipassiko. And this is this idea that when you read the suttas and you compare the content of the word of the Buddha, you ask yourself, does it make sense? Is it true to my experience of the world? The idea with Buddhism is not to believe things blindly, is actually to really check it out. Does it actually make sense? One of those wonderful things about the Buddhist teachings, that they're supposed to be true to experience, and not just a matter of faith and all of these kind of things. So check it out, then practice, see if it still fits with your experience. Relevant is the next one. Relevant is opanaiko, and it means something that it is worthy of being applied. It is worthy of application, worthy of practice, worthy of doing. Of course, because it gives rise to exactly those things that we are looking for. So it is worthy of being applied, the Dhamma. And the last one, sensible people can know the Dhamma for themselves. Again, this idea of immediately visible. You can know it in this very life. The only downside is that you have to be sensible. That's the only problem here. So if you're not sensible, you have a problem. The Pali word for sensible is vinyu. It means something like someone who understands, someone who is wise. That's really what it refers to. So Bhante Sujato uses sensible because he can't use wise everywhere, because so many words that can be translated as wise, so he leaves it with sensible. So there you are. That's the Dhamma. It gives you some ideas of how to think about the Dhamma. This is how the Buddha talks about it here, these teachings. So I'm going to just move on a little bit faster now. So the next one is about contemplating the Sangha. Furthermore, a noble disciple recollects the Sangha. Yeah? The Sangha of the Blessed One's disciples is practicing the way that is good, the way that is direct, the way that is methodical, the way that is proper. It consists of the 4 pairs and the 8 individuals. This is the Sangha of the Buddha's disciples that is worthy of offerings dedicated to the gods, worthy of hospitality, worthy of religious donation, worthy of greetings with joined palms, and is the supreme field of merit for the world. And then you have the same thing again when the noble disciple recollects the Sangha in this way. It doesn't have any desire, ill will, or confusion, etc., etc., going all the way to samadhi. And this is called the noble disciple again, who lives in balance, who lives untroubled, and they have entered the stream of the teaching and developed the recollection of the Sangha. So the Sangha in the suttas is always the monastic Sangha, and here it is really the monastic Sangha as those who are noble ones. This refers to the noble disciples all the way here. That is why they're practicing the good way, supatipanno, ujjupatipanno, the direct way, because when you know the path, you don't make any deviations. If you don't know the path, you're going to make deviating all the time, because your mind is not going to be going straight to the goal. So this is a reference to the noble ones. It is methodical. This word methodical is interesting, nyaya patipanno, and nyaya in the suttas is actually often a reference to dependent origination. The thing that we have been looking at throughout this thing. And so actually, the noble disciples, they are practicing in accordance with dependent origination, or you could say dependent cessation. The cessation of all of these factors. They are undermining avidya at the very root of dependent origination, and so they're undermining the whole sequence, reducing suffering, reducing rebirth in the future. They are practicing the proper way, sammici patipanno. Again, this is like similar to ujju patipanno. It is straight, it is proper, because they know what they're doing here. They don't deviate. It is the right way according to the Buddhist path. So this is the great thing about having some noble people in our communities, because once you have noble people around, they know the path. When you ask them, they will give you advice that is generally very solid and right. So this is kind of the idea of the noble ones. So these are very useful people to have around, to say the least. It consists of the 4 pairs and the 8 individuals. So these are how the noble people are classified in the suttas. 4 pairs are those, it is divided into the 8 individuals, those who are on the path to become stream mentors, and the stream mentors, those who are practicing for the attainment of once returning, and those who are once returners, those who are practicing for the attainment of non-returning, and the non-returners, those who are practicing for awakening, and those who are awakened. So it's like 4 pairs and 8 individuals, you can see there. So these are these people. I'm not going to go into the difference between these ones. They're all kind of really cool people. Maybe that's the wrong word to use, but they're cool in the higher sense of cool. There's one of the great synonyms for the arahant in the suttas is siti butto, and it literally means become cool. And this is the higher kind of cool. It's not the cool in the lower way. They don't need sunglasses to be cool. They're cool in the higher sense. And so I always wanted at one of our monks, to take the word siti butto. And when people ask him the name, they say, "I'm the cool one." Wouldn't that be nice? That would kind of be cool, I suppose. So this is these are the noble disciples, practicing in the right way. And then it says again that they are worthy of offerings. It says here, dedicated to the gods. Not sure why he has put that in there. I think it's enough to call it dedicated, are worthy of offerings is sufficient. What is the Pali word again here? Pali word is Ahuneya. Yeah, okay. So I think the reason is because these are kind of traditional offerings given in India to the gods. That's why he calls it that. So it's like a higher gift, yeah, a gift to something special. That's probably why he has it put it in that way. It's kind of considered something high, special kind of offering, not just an ordinary act of generosity, I suppose. Worthy of hospitality, worthy of religious donation. Okay, worthy of gifts, I suppose, and worthy of greetings with joined palms, Anjali Karaniyo. So these are the four things, yeah. And again, of course, the reason, as I mentioned before, why this is the case, is that they give you access to the teaching of the Buddha. These are the people who know these teachings intimately by heart through their own realization. So they give you access to these beautiful teachings. And because they are the highest teachers in the world, just like the Buddha, even higher, but they are, getting close to what the Buddha is like. That is why they're worthy of support in return in this way. And that's a beautiful symbiosis in Buddhism. The symbiosis between, on the one hand, supporting, the people who are worthy of support, and then the teaching in return. It's a beautiful kind of goes together in this way. And if both sides do their job in the right way without, overstepping the bounds or getting conceited or being stupid about it, as long as it's done in the right way, it's a beautiful mutual support that happens in this way. And I don't know, I find it really delightful and very powerful in a way. And of course, everyone benefits. That's the whole point of this. So they are the supreme field of merit for the world, according to the Buddhist idea of merit. If you do a donation to these kind of people, well, then actually that is, where there is more merit. The highest kind of merit in Buddhism is, if you're just going to do a donation or a gift, it is to give to the dual sangha headed by the Buddha. Dual sangha means bhikkhus and bhikkhunis together. That is the highest field of merit in the world. So these are the ideas. These are kind of the how this is articulated and mentioned in the suttas, but it's a bit theoretical. So I would also recommend you to try to meet some of these people who are special, and kind of hang out with them for a while. Go and visit some of these people if you have a chance. It is not always so easy to find. First of all, you have to figure out who you think is worthy of these things. Who are these Aryan noble ones? And to me, there are some people in the world who kind of stand out as very special. I have very high regards for my own teacher, Ajahn Brahmali. I also have high regards for some of the monks and nuns that I have met in my life. And one of the people who I've mentioned before is like Ajahn Ganha, this old Thai monk who has this really decrepit body, but has this very, very bright mind, and very beautiful person. And you get this feeling when you are around them, there's like a force field around them. You are in the presence of something higher. And I have been to his monastery and I have visited him, and when I go there, he's very kind to me because I'm a monastic. He always gives special attention to monastic, especially if you are Ajahn Brahm disciple. It really helps. So I'll tell you a secret. Doesn't go beyond the doors of this room, right? So the idea is, if you want to visit Ajahn Ganha, make sure you are a disciple of Ajahn Brahm first of all. Go there, say, I'm a disciple of Ajahn Brahm, and he will say, okay, yes, in that case, we'll give you special attention, right? That is kind of the starting point. You have to have everything is connections in this world, right? The same thing on the spiritual path. Connections is what really matters. But there's some truth to that, because when you have a connection with something, you have a sense of confidence in that thing, because you have known it for a while. You know that this is to be trusted. So connections always do matter. Not only in the business world, but everywhere. Connections are really important, and that's true in the Dhamma as well. So go there. Say you are a disciple of Ajahn Brahm, and maybe he just doesn't care. Maybe he's going to say whatever, and it doesn't make any difference. But at least you can check it out and see if it works. And if you're not a disciple of Ajahn Brahm, don't lie. That's the last thing you should do in the presence of the noble ones. So, and he sits there, and you just sit there, and he talks. And what is so interesting about someone like Ajahn Ganha is the way he speaks is so simple. So super simple, and it's much more to do with where he's coming from, the clarity of the way he speaks, and just his presence. And he's so utterly most people have a degree of self-consciousness. They're a bit self-conscious, if there's a large group or you have to be in the center of attention, these kind of things. He's utterly unself-conscious. He's like, he could be anywhere. Yeah, it doesn't make any difference whether there's 1,000 people there who's by himself. It's almost exactly the same. And that's what you would expect if there is no sense of self. Yeah, you are unconscious, not unconscious, unself-conscious, because you have given up that sense of me, and you feel like you're being stared at or looked at or whatever. That's completely gone. And that's a very beautiful thing to see. It's like a small child. A small child, sometimes they say really inappropriate things in a crowd, right? Little children are like that. And so they become a little bit like little children, except that they don't say the inappropriate things, that's all. They only say appropriate things. So it's beautiful to see these things. And when you see these things, you realize there's something going on here that is really profound and really beautiful. And then he sits there, Ajahn Ganha, all these people are around him, yeah. And then he has this enormous tray of sweets next to him, yeah, this massive bowl. Then he has all these kind of upataks, all these people, lots of upataks. Upatak means like an attendant. All these attendants looking after him, and they come with these buckets and they pour sweets into this enormous bowl. They're always making sure it's full of sweets. And then he has this little dipper, and he dips the little dipper into the large bowl, and he looks out at the crowd, yeah, and he looks, and he takes the dipper and he throws the sweets out. So it rains sweets down on everyone. And it's really a spectacle to behold when you are there. It's kind of this amazing thing, yeah. But and in one sense, it's kind of strange, yeah. If you're not a Buddhist, you think this is really weird, and you probably walk off straight away. But when you know what's going on, there's something. It's a kind of act of generosity on his behalf. And the sweet, to me, the sweetness of the sweets symbolizes the sweetness of his character. And then he says to them, take these sweets back home with you. And of course, when they take those sweets back home with them, they will remind him of Ajahn Ganha. They will remind him of a certain situation that was very powerful and actually had an impact on them. So it has a purpose, right? It has a deeper meaning to these things that seem really crazy on the surface, but actually under the surface, if you take it in the right way, it's actually very beautiful. He gave you a bottle of honey. What was your experience with Ajahn Ganha? Mm. 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 Yeah. Mm. Mm. Mhm. 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 Mm. Mm. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, he's very famous for not saying very much. You know the story, he had all the people from Perth, they went there, you know that one? all the people from Perth, they went to see Ajahn Ganha. They went with Ajahn Brahm. They all went, and they was all ready. Oh, we're going to ask him the questions. This is the real kind of meditation master. We're going to ask him questions about meditation. They all came around. Ajahn Ganha was there and said, "Oh, Venerable Sir, can we please ask a question about meditation?" And he said, "Sure." And I said, "Okay, so can you please give us some advice on how to do meditation practice?" And he said, "Okay, this is the advice. Breathe in, sabai. Breathe out, sabai." That was it. That was the whole instruction. We have come all the way from Perth. Say something more. It's not enough. It's not enough. Sabai means like relax, yeah, be at ease. So breathe in, relax. Breathe out, relax. But it's probably enough, right? It's probably all you need to know. If you can actually do that properly, and of course that's the problem, if you can do it properly, it's going to be very powerful, right? And this is kind of the point of that. So this is Ajahn Ganha for you. Doesn't say very much usually, or sometimes it does, but simple things. So anyway, these are some of the people in the world who are very kind of inspiring. Or you have someone like Ajahn Liam, who is the head monk of Wat Pah Pong, who took over after Ajahn Chah. He's also, I don't know him that well, but many people say he's also very, very inspiring monk and very powerful. What about the bhikkhunis? What are the most powerful bhikkhunis in the world? Yeah, maybe. I'm not so sure. Have you met him? Have you asked him? No, so yeah. Sometimes you have to ask personally to know for sure. But yeah, probably not. Yeah, because that's the whole what they do as a group, so they kind of carry on with the group. Yeah. So what about the bhikkhunis? What are the most powerful bhikkhunis in the world? Or maitris or anyone on the women's side? There are some powerful. What about some of the bhikkhunis or maitris in Thailand that are very powerful and considered like maybe noble ones and that sort of thing? Yeah. Don't know. There are some around. What about Maitri Gao? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we had some of the and it is possible to find very inspiring women practitioners as well, but obviously not so many simply because there are fewer of them. So there are fewer and far between. But people like Ajahn Vayama, who started Dhammasara Monastery in Perth, she was very inspiring in many ways. Living by herself in a caravan for 2 years, just one woman living in the middle of nowhere in a caravan by herself. It was kind of pretty awesome, and it's kind of very rare to see that. Yeah, not being seeming to be afraid of anything. I mean, it's always a bit more dangerous to be a woman just living by herself in the middle of the Australian bush. It's kind of a bit more dodgy. But she did that very, very happily and very, very successfully, and she really strove really hard to get started the nuns community in Perth. So very inspiring and very, very impressive in many ways. I'm not sure exactly about her meditation achievements, but she gave very good Dhamma talks. People were very impressed by her Dhamma talks as well. If you want to, you can listen to those. They are recorded and I think available to the present day on the BSWA website. Yes, she died recently. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, so you can't really see her alive anymore, but you can see her. She was declining for a long time. She had some kind of cerebral degeneration. Okay, let's come back to the sutta. So please see if you can find some of these living noble ones. You never will know whether they actually are noble ones or not, but you can sort of make an educated guess, as they say. You can know who the ones who are not noble are anyway, that's for sure, but the actual noble ones are a bit more uncertain here. Let's move on to the next one. Next one is one of the meditations that you did, Vimala, the Sila Nusati. Is that right? Yeah. First one. Okay. So let's now we come into the first one that was done here. Okay. What did you do today? Shulasuna, the emptiness. Ah, okay. All right. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. The gradual descent into emptiness. Yeah. Okay. Furthermore, a noble disciple recollects their own ethical conduct, which is unbroken, impeccable, spotless, and unmarred, liberating, praised by sensible people, not mistaken, not grasped, and leading to samadhi. When a noble disciple recollects this, again the mind is free of the defilements, he gets gladness and happiness, taking you all the way to samadhi, and then you live in balance, you live untroubled, and you've entered the stream of the teaching, developing the recollection of ethics. So you can see here, what you recall is the unbroken nature of your silas. The more powerful your sila is, the more ability you have to actually have almost a perfect record in your sila, in conduct, in speech, in mind, the more powerful it is going to be. So it actually matters that we avoid making mistakes. It really matters a lot, because then we know that we have been living really, really well. So this is why every time you do make a mistake, it's a bit like taking one step backwards. So don't give up because of that. Don't be harsh on yourself. Have compassion for yourself. Know that you're making the mistakes because of habits from the past. Don't take it personally, but also know that it is going to affect your mind one way or another. So you want to avoid it in the future. Yeah, so this is the more unbroken, the more pure, unblemished that sila is, the more powerful it is going to be. Avoid to get angry, avoiding excessive desires. All of these things are part of this. And then, when it has this kind of quality, you think back on it, you're going to feel really good about yourself. This is how this thing works. You just feel a sense of being, as I mentioned before, a sense of self-worth and all of these things. It comes naturally. It becomes second nature in this way. I know about myself. I feel much better about myself now than when I was a dodgy layperson, almost 30 years ago now, a long time ago. But I wasn't super dodgy, but more dodgy than I am now. So it feels really nice to be living in a reasonably good way here. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but much better than I was. It is liberating, one of those important things about sila. And this is one of those things that people often misunderstand. They think that if you practice sila, if you practice kindness in the world, or you practice kind of all this morality, they think you are bound down. You can't do what you want. You can't go and enjoy yourself in dodgy ways. You can't do all of these kind of things. And somehow virtue kind of restricts you, from all the opportunities in the world. And yes, it is true. If you really want to be super virtuous, yes, you have certain restrictions on you. But what they're missing is that the real restriction is actually the defilements in the mind. The real restrictions are the things inside of us that stop us from having that deeper sense of contentment and happiness. So when virtue is liberating, it actually frees the mind up from all of those things that makes the mind small and hard and stupid. And it allows the mind, in sense, to instead of be free of these things. It clears up those problems in the mind, and that is the real liberation inside. So people don't understand what freedom means to begin with. Freedom is something deep within. It is not some kind of external thing you're allowed to mess around in the world. That's no freedom at all. It is a misunderstanding of this whole idea of freedom. There's a beautiful simile in one of the Ajahn Brahm's books, I think in the opening of the door of your heart, the simile of the fish tank that you may have read or heard about. It's a beautiful idea of, even though fish are in a tank, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are not free, because they are freed from many kinds of oppressions in the world elsewhere. So maybe the fish in the fish tank are better off than fish in the wild. Have a look at that book and have a look at that simile. It's quite a nice little story. So it is liberating, right? You get liberated by being virtuous. It's a really nice idea to think of. Your mind is freed up from all of these negative things. It is praised by sensible people. When you are virtuous, the people in the world who actually understand what the world is about, they will praise you. So who would you like to be praised by? Would you like to be praised by some kind of average person who doesn't know anything? Or would you like to be praised by those people who are, Ajahn Brahm, the Buddha? Would you like to be praised by the Buddha? Buddha says, you are doing well, carry on. Sometimes we buy into praise. Any scallywag praises us and we feel good about it. But what do ordinary people know anyway? Most people haven't got a clue. So someone praises us. Actually, we should just shrug our shoulders and we should just say, what do you know anyway? Whether they blame us or whether they praise us is kind of irrelevant. That's basically true, isn't it? But when someone like who really knows what they're talking about, someone who really has insight into these teachings, when they praise you or when they tell you off, very rarely will they tell you off anyway. But if they praise you, then it is worth taking on board. So in general, in the world, if someone does praise you, ask yourself, am I worthy of that praise? Are they telling the truth? And then if they're telling the truth, okay, they're telling the truth. That's fine. Don't reject praise. Sometimes we think we should reject praise because, I don't want to become full of myself, that kind of stuff. But it's okay to accept praise if it is honest. And the same thing with blame. Yeah, is it true or is it not true? If it is true, okay, maybe I can do something to change my behavior or whatever. If it is not true, okay, just reject the blame. Don't worry about it. But we take other people's words too seriously, as if other people really know what they're talking about. They don't. Why do we buy into praise from people who are clueless about what is really worthwhile in this world? Why do we buy into their blame? Actually, it is not important at all. And in this way, when you don't buy into praise and blame, again, you have this evenness of mind. You don't worry so much about those things. But sensible people, they will praise you if you live well. Not mistaken is the translation here. What it means, you don't grasp onto the virtues anymore. If you become a noble person, the more noble you are, the less you grasp onto things. If you're not a noble person, you need to grasp a little bit, because if you don't grasp a little bit of virtue, you're not going to keep it. So a little bit of holding is okay. Once you become a noble one, you have been transformed psychologically. You don't need to grasp anymore. Being virtuous becomes like a natural way of behavior for you. You can't really avoid being virtuous anymore. No need to grasp anymore. Not mistaken. I think that's a mistaken translation. Okay. So then the last one is leading to immersion, leading to samadhi, leading to stillness. And again, this is what I've been saying all the way throughout, and this is what when you start looking at the suttas, you find it everywhere. Here you find it again. Sila leads to samadhi. Sila leads to meditation practice, Here you are again, for the nth time, even during a little retreat like this. Only been looking at a few suttas. How many times have we seen this? And you might think, I've picked out those suttas specifically, to make this point. Have I? Maybe a little bit of truth to that, but actually I haven't really picked them out with that in mind. But of course, certain suttas tend to have this kind of point, But here it is again, in a very different context, Again, pointing to exactly the same thing, So this is how you think about your virtue, Make it natural. How do you actually do that in meditation practice? And one of the way to do it is not to try too hard. If you try too hard, like you are, maybe especially if you already have many defilements in your mind. If you have many defilements in your mind, don't try to bring up this kind of thing. First of all, calm down. Allow your mind to become relatively peaceful. Only then is this sort of thing going to work. If you try this when your mind is already upset or your mind is agitated by something in the world, all the things in the world, it is not going to work because it is not going to be able to overpower those existing defilements. Calm down first of all, and then when you are calmed down, be very gentle if you want to bring this to mind. There's two things you can do. Either you can bring up a specific time in your life when you did something that was really kind and you felt really good about yourself, remembering a specific instance, because it was very powerful, it gave rise to a lot of joy when you did that at a certain point in your life. Or you can just bring to mind just the general idea that you are virtuous, and then bring it in together with remembering what virtue actually does. It does all of these things, right? It liberates you. It leads you to samadhi. It is praised by the wise people in the world. Aren't those things wonderful? Those things are really beautiful. And so you just remember that you are living according to this, and that this is the outcome and the, what this brings with it, so to speak, when you live in this kind of way. And then it becomes really something that actually inspires you, brings out all those good qualities. And then you start to feel good. You feel good about yourself. I'm living well. That's great. Isn't it wonderful to live well? Doesn't give you a big ego at all. It becomes like this peaceful, quiet sense of satisfaction with yourself. You don't spread it out to the world. You don't tell anyone else about it. The moment you tell anyone else about your good characters, they become blemished. They become marred at that point, and you can feel it. Notice that if you ever brag about something in your life, straight away you are reducing the accomplishment. Straight away the accomplishment doesn't feel so great anymore. It is like you are putting a blemish on the accomplishment. So if you go out to the world saying, "Yeah, I'm a really good person," it is not. That is where the problem arises. But feeling good about it yourself within, that is perfectly satisfactory. If you do it in a peaceful, quiet, and just a sense of goodness about yourself, then you are doing the right thing. It does not lead to a big ego if you do this in the right way. So this is the idea of recalling the ethics, the sila nusati. So give that a try. This is something that we all can do to some extent. It has double benefit. First of all, you start feeling a bit better about yourself. You start having a reasonable appreciation of yourself. We need to appreciate ourselves. Too many people are too hard on ourselves in this world. Certain cultures seem to have this, being hard on ourselves seems to be a matter of pride. I'm really hard on myself. Actually, it's stupid. I shouldn't say stupid. It's silly to be hard on yourself. Be kind to yourself, for goodness sake. You are worthy of that kindness. You come here to keep the 8 precepts. You come here to do something good. Everyone here is worthy of that kind of self-kindness towards yourself. Be gentle and soft and reasonable with yourself. You are all really, really good people. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. That is the right way to feel about yourself. And then when you sit down in meditation, not only will you gain the benefit, but it will also encourage you to be more kind and even better person in the future. So it has a beautiful kind of this duality, useful in meditation and future encouragement for even more kindness. Let's come to the next recollection. Furthermore, a noble disciple recollects their own generosity. I'm so fortunate, so very fortunate. Among people full of the stain of stinginess, I live at home rid of stinginess, freely generous, open-handed, loving to let go, committed to charity, loving to give and to share. When a noble disciple recollects their own generosity, the mind is free of those defilements. It builds up the joy, taking you to samadhi. This is called the noble disciple in balance, and who is untroubled. They have entered the stream of the teaching, and they recollect generosity. And there's something really, just that first sentence there, or first phrase, I am so fortunate. Because among all of these people in the world who are stained by stinginess, I live at home rid of stinginess. It's kind of this idea that if you are generous, if you have understood the importance of generosity and you live a life of generosity, you are fortunate. This is actually what enriches your life, not actually getting more, holding on to it, grabbing it for yourself, but the opposite is what enriches you. The fact that you are able to just give out to the world, that is a kind of fortune. And it's kind of interesting, very often in life we see people who are generous or whatever, and sometimes we think, they don't know what they're doing. Why are they giving away to the poor? They're just going to abuse that, misuse that money. And they're kind of really cynical about the idea of generosity. That is quite common in the world. Probably not here in this group, but it happens in the world, that you see this cynicism about generosity. And actually, it is the other way around. If you have freedom from that stinginess, you are so fortunate because you are tapping into a much greater joy than what is available to other people. I don't know if you have noticed that, but sometimes when you give, it can be extraordinarily joyful and powerful. It is like you feel like you're opening up into the world. You're tearing down the barriers between people. And this joy arises out of this sense of almost like, it's like you're unifying and bringing people together when you're generous in this way. It feels very nice. And it's not as if you are looking down upon the people that you're generous to. Sometimes I hear people say this, when you give it to someone who is really poor, it's like you look down upon them. Well, that is not that is wrong. Yeah, there's no, it is not good to look down upon people just because they're poor. Remember, you have also been in that position of poverty at some point, if not in this life, certainly in other lives. We have all been in that position. Now the positions are changed; they are swapped over. But that doesn't mean that so you certainly shouldn't look down upon them. See it as an opportunity to be generous. See it as an opportunity to see another human being in need, and then give on that basis. Yeah, having generosity is a gift to every one of us. If you have a generous heart, feel the spiritual power of that in your life. It is a very beautiful thing in our practice. So feel fortunate if you are someone who is generous. Don't allow yourself to be discouraged by cynical people who say that this is just, you're just being stupid, giving away your things. No, you are the exact opposite. They are the ones who are being stupid. They don't understand the power of these things. So you live at home with rid of the stain of stinginess. The stinginess is a stain on the heart. Because it is a stain on the heart, it means that you cannot enter samadhi when you are stained by stinginess. Very important point. Yeah, you cannot really enter jhanas or anything like that as long as there is a little bit of stinginess within. This is one of the things that you find in the standard formulas in many places. That if you have any remnant of stinginess within, cannot enter deep meditation, cannot become a stream enterer. All of these things are blocked off from you. You have to have a fully open heart, open to the whole world. Only then are these states possible, because they are very powerful spiritual qualities that you need to bring with you to enter the even deeper spiritual qualities. Freely generous, open-handed, loving to let go. Yeah. Committed to charity. Vasagarata is the other one. Committed to charity, loving to give and to share. This is the Buddhist idea of generosity. Again, it's a very high bar to clear. But once you get into this, it's a wonderful thing to do. So again, try to bring it up in your meditation if you can. If you have done acts of charity in your life, especially maybe certain things that give you a lot of joy and happiness, or just a general attitude of your mind, or just the idea of charity, if you know what it means, what it feels like, just bring up the idea in your mind, and that can be enough to kind of make you feel joyful, because you know that you live in accordance with that idea. And then again, you will be encouraged to do these things in your daily life. Never go past an opportunity to do an act of charity. If you have the opportunity to do something kind to somebody, act of charity, giving a monk a cup of coffee in the morning, it's wonderful. I feel really grateful when I get a cup of coffee in the morning. It's a wonderful thing to do, and it's very kind of you to provide that. Take every such opportunity, not just to the monks, but to each other, not to the nuns, just to the nuns of the monks, but to each other, to everyone. If you see a beggar on the street, give something if you can, if you have the opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity to give, every opportunity you have. And you can expand the idea of generosity. Generosity here mostly refers to material well-being, but you can expand that into everything. You can make your whole life an act of generosity. Every time you open your mouth, it can be a gift to somebody else. How can I make my speech a gift to the world around me, to all the people around me? And this can become very powerful and beautiful when this happens. And then you say something and you ask yourself, whether these things are is a gift or whether it is not. And then you can even think in the same way. How can your thinking mind become an act of generosity? How can you give something out of kindness in the way you think about other people around you? And after a while, your whole life becomes an act of generosity. Is this something I need to know? Are you okay? Yeah? Aha, okay, I see. Problem with YouTube, that's the problem. Oh, high tech, high tuk. You know that saying? High tech, high tuk? Tuk is the Pali word, no, not the Pali, the Thai word for dukkha, for suffering. High tech, high suffering. That's what it means. Should I just carry on? Yeah, I can carry on. Okay, good. So this is the idea then of generosity. Make your life into a whole long act of generosity. From the moment you're born until you die, there's generosity all the way through. That is a beautiful life, a life lived well. Excellent. And this is one of the things that I really love about the monastic life, is that the monastic life, no salary, nothing like that. Basically, it is just all generosity, all kindness all the way through. Everything we do is really an act of generosity. One of the things that you can also do, you can make your meditation an act of generosity. Yeah, because that kind of brings in a beautiful attitude in your meditation practice. When you meditate, you become a better person. You're purifying your mind, and when you later on, when you meet people in the world, you will meet them with more care, compassion, respect, understanding, all of these things. Meditation is not a selfish thing at all. Meditation is one of the greatest things we can do to contribute to the happiness of the world and to all of these things. So when you sit down and meditate, think of yourself, I do this as an act of kindness to the whole world. Yeah, then actually you bring in some of the beauty of generosity right there into your meditation practice. And that can also be very powerful. Yeah, not only are you recollecting generosity, you're doing everything out of generosity, even meditation practice. So again, be gentle about these things, yeah? Bring it up very gently in your mind. Don't use a kind of, all you need sometimes is just to nudge the mind a little bit. I like the idea of nudge, because nudge means like a tiny movement, yeah? Tiny little thing, yeah? If your mind is already becoming peaceful, you don't want to do a lot of thinking, because that is going to destroy your peace of mind, yeah? So that is the problem here. So that is generosity. I'm going to carry on a little bit longer. I'm going to do the last of these 6 recollections, otherwise there's no chance we will have to finish off the last sutta tomorrow. So I'm going to do the last one of the 6. And this one is quite interesting. This is called the recollection of the deities. Yeah, and this is, I've heard of very few people who do this recollection, but it's kind of interesting nevertheless. So this is how it goes. Are you okay? No? Okay. Okay. Okay, let's get back to. Thank you for your generosity in organizing the camera. It's very, very kind of you. All right. Furthermore, a noble disciple recollects the deities. They are gods of the 4 great kings, the gods of the 33, the gods of Yama, the joyful gods, the gods who love to create, and the gods who control the creations of others, the gods of Brahma's host, and gods even higher than these. When those deities passed away from here, they were reborn there because of their faith, ethics, learning, generosity, and wisdom. I too have the same kind of faith, ethics, learning, generosity, and wisdom. When a noble disciple recollects the faith, ethics, learning, generosity, of wisdom of both themselves and the deities, their mind is not full of desire, ill will, and delusion. Yeah, so the idea here is that you know that you have the same ethics by which these amazing beings became reborn in those realms. Yeah, it is the last one of the 6 recollections, because it is obviously, it's like a little bit lower, yeah, because now you are still kind of focusing within the realm of samsara. You're focusing on the gods, you're focusing not on enlightenment or the Buddha or the highest qualities, but it is still something that can kind of lead to joy. And what we're trying to do here is to give rise to joy. And as long as you are remembering the good spiritual qualities of these beings, you're still within the realm of spirituality. If you remember all the sensual pleasures they have, then it's not going to work, right? So have to remember the gods in the right way. If you think, yeah, those gods, yeah, they get really nice food. Wow, I hope I get reborn there. Okay, then it's not going to work. Yeah, that's the wrong way to think. Yeah. So you have to get this right. But if you get it right, and you know that what you're doing is of the same quality that these gods were doing, yeah, and I mean, you have to have some feeling of these gods. I don't know if you can relate to the idea of gods. I've been a Buddhist for so long. For me, it's really easy to have an idea of gods. Yeah, it's not hard at all. These are just beings very much like us, but they are just more happy. They are more bright. They have great, usually a greater degree of good qualities. Otherwise, they wouldn't be reborn there, at least than the average person. Yeah, and they are obviously have a lot of metta and kindness. Like sometimes we meet people in the world who we think are a bit like gods. Yeah, they are like deities. Or you're, it's quite common in Buddhism to say, "Oh, you're a bit of a deva, aren't you?" Because they're such kind people. Wow, you're like a deva, and there are lots of devas in the world as well. But here we recall the real devas with all these qualities. They're beautiful, beautiful beings, and their beautiful external appearance just reflects the inner reality. They have a beautiful inner life as well. The external things reflects the internal things. They are mirror images of each other. Yeah, so this is kind of what you see when you see those deities, those beings in the higher realms in this way. And then, based on that, comes the same thing again. Yeah, when the noble disciple recollects the faith, ethics, learning, generosity, and wisdom of both themselves and the deities, their mind is not full of desire, ill will, and confusion. At that time, their mind is straight or unswerving, based on the deities. A noble disciple whose mind is straight finds inspiration in the goal of the practice, where we're all heading, and the teaching. They find joy connected with the teaching. When you are joyful, rapture springs up. When the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, you feel bliss. And when you are blissful, the mind becomes stilled in samadhi. This is called the noble disciple who lives in balance among people who are unbalanced, who lives untroubled among people who are troubled. They have entered the stream of the teaching and developed the recollection of the deities. When a noble disciple has reached the fruit and understood the instructions, this is the kind of meditation they frequently practice. So there you are. These are the famous 6 recollection, the anusattis in Pali, and they are very, very useful to develop them because they also encourage you to live well at the same time. So develop them very gently. There's one anusati or one recollection that is not mentioned here, which I thought I would recommend to you, and that is, instead of recalling the Sangha, is to recall your Kalyana Mittas. Because the Sangha is like very unknown. You don't really know who the Sangha is. Yeah, it is kind of this theoretical abstraction of people who may or may not exist, and they probably exist, but exactly who they are is very uncertain. But you know who your Kalyana Mittas are. Yeah, you know Kalyana means beautiful or good. Mitta is friend. So these are your spiritual friends. You know who they are. And that it is possible to recollect. Yeah, your primary spiritual friend is the Buddha. Other spiritual friends may be the people who you listen to. If you listen to a talk or you watch a talk on the internet or a recording or whatever, these are also your spiritual friends. Yeah, any monastics that you may know, or lay people, teachers who you may know, who you consider spiritual practitioners, who are supportive of you, who inspire you. Yeah, these are your spiritual friends. And in the end, all your peers, all the people you meditate with, your friends in daily life who support you, who encourage you to live well. We should all encourage each other to live well. Are you aware of that? One of the interesting things about the Buddhist Sila is that we should be virtuous ourselves, and we should also encourage other people to be virtuous. This is actually an aspect of Sila. So if you have the ability to encourage others, please do so. But be very careful when you encourage others, because it can very easily backfire. If you do it the wrong way, they're going to push you away and say, I don't want to have anything more to do with you. Because people don't like to be pushed around. So you have to be very do it in a way that is like indirect, yeah. And when someone does something nice, praise them for doing something nice, instead of telling them off for doing something silly or stupid. And then you are acting like a kalyanamitta yourself, by encouraging others to do what is good in the world. So that is an easy way often to think about the idea of spiritual friendship, yeah, spiritual community, all the people in the world, and feel, wow, I'm so lucky to have this support. Where would I be without the Sangha? Where would I be without Ajahn Brahmali and the Buddha? I'd be nobody. I'd be kind of hanging out in Norway skiing, probably. What a waste of time. I loved to ski, actually. When I was young, I would ski all the time. I was kind of crazy about skiing, all kinds of skiing. But it's not really the same as practicing the Dhamma, you know. So I've been kind of lost somewhere in a cold place like Norway, kind of hanging around skiing, doing silly things. So we are so lucky to have these teachings, to have these spiritual communities. Yeah, if it wasn't for Buddhism, I wouldn't probably be spiritual at all. I probably wouldn't be interested in any kind of religion because I'm not naturally really a religious person at all. I grew up in a non-religious family. Christianity didn't mean anything to me when I grew up. It was like it was almost like something I rejected, to be honest. But for me, Buddhism was different. Buddhism to me was not really a religion, and that's why I could accept it. Now, in retrospect, I realize that Christianity as well is more than I thought it was. I thought it was just dogmas and silliness. But I realize in retrospect that even with Christianity, there's a lot of goodness actually. So I have much more respect for Christianity now after I became a Buddhist than I had before I became a Buddhist, which is kind of strange, you know. So, um, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a different kind of balance. Skiing requires physical balance, whereas Dhamma requires mental balance. You know, different. So it's metaphorically it is nice. I agree with you there. True. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's good to have a balanced mind as well. Yeah, it helps. Sure. Still, it's not exactly the same, I would say. Still, there is a difference. But yeah, as a metaphor, it's nice though. Yeah, as a simile, balanced on skis, balanced in your mind. It works as a nice simile. Maybe as a simile I should use in the future. Okay, thank you for that idea, Venerable. Let's see if we can use that. So anyway, my point is just that we don't really know how grateful we should be sometimes to the spiritual communities and the people who have gone before us and the Buddha and all of these kind of things. It is hard to grasp how lost many of us would be without these teachings. Because it is not obvious in the world what is right and what is wrong. We need some kind of support, yeah? And this is what this gives us. And that is a wonderful gift that each one of us should really need to reflect a little bit on. And then once you start to understand that, it can give you a sense of respect, of joy, and all of these wonderful qualities as a consequence. Anyway, I'm going to stop there. So let's have a 10-minute break till 7:20. And we'll see you back again at 7:20. Okay, so let's then do the Q&A. There's going to be still more Q&A tomorrow, so still have a chance for some last questions if you wish. So here we are. Dear Ajahn, can a monastic who is against bhikkhunis actually become an arahant? It seems to me to be in contradiction to each other. Yeah. Also, as a bhikkhuni teacher, I would like to recommend Kema. Okay, you'd like to you are not the bhikkhuni teacher, but you would like to recommend a. That's actually a very good point. Yeah, that's a very good point. A German nun who passed away, I think, she passed away. Yeah, how long is it? Not that long ago. 20 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, more than 10 years probably. I can't remember now when she passed away, but it's a while ago. Yeah. Yes, that's a very good point. Actually, you'll be interested in Bodhinyana Monastery. We have a picture on the wall of Ayakema. It is in our monastery in the Dana Sala where we eat. Yeah, we have pictures of various inspiring monks all the way around the walls. And so we have monks, and then we have one nun among all the monks. It's kind of unusual. So we have Ayakemas on the wall there, and she is a very, very inspiring bhikkhuni. Actually, it's a very good point. She was very well known for her good meditation practice and her knowledge of the suttas and all of that. And she was a formidable bhikkhuni apparently, who was very good at getting things done and organized and starting monasteries. And I don't know what she did. She did an enormous amount, writing books, of course, giving teachings everywhere. So she was really, she was one of the pioneers. She became a bhikkhuni already back in 1988, I think, in LA or something like that. It was a very early bhikkhuni ordination that was considered maybe dates. I think it was I think it was in Los Angeles because this was before the start ordination in Sri Lanka. She was very, very early on. So before the famous ordinations at Bodh Gaya in 96 and 98. So she was even before that. So she was very, very early on. Yeah. So anyway, so she is indeed. Can a monastic who is against bhikkhunis actually become an arahant? I think you have to be careful with kind of drawing absolutes because there's a danger. Remember that a lot of these things have to do with culture. They have to do with ideas about the Vinaya Pitaka, yeah, about what actually is possible. They would argue that it is impossible based on the rules in the Vinaya. That's what they would argue. And sometimes they don't even know those rules themselves. They just go by hearsay, by what other people say. So I don't think you can judge them to be impossible to become an arahant. If they blocked bhikkhuni ordination without any good reason, sure, then they wouldn't be arahants. I would agree with you, because then they would be coming from defilements or ill will or whatever. But if they come from a culture and from an idea that it is scripturally impossible, then I think it is still conceivable that they might, I don't think there is necessarily a contradiction there. So it's always about motivation. It's always about why they say these things, what your intention is. That's really the critical thing here. Would any of the two bhikkhunis like to add anything more on that? You have already added your point, Venerable, so we know what you think. Venerable Vimala? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. So just yep. You're allowed to disagree with me, if you think I say something dodgy, then all right. Dear Ajahn, have you done Tudong pilgrimage? If yes, can you share with us your biggest learning? If not, why not? Not really. I haven't really done any kind of what is traditionally called Tudong, which means wandering around. And the reason is that it's not really. It's not so obvious where you would do it, put it that way. You could, if you do it in Australia, it becomes very artificial. You have to organize people to look after you, and actually it becomes just a massive organizational thing rather than really kind of randomly walking around, which Tudong should be about. In Thailand these days, people don't really recommend you to do these things anymore because it used to be good in Thailand because you had all these forests and you had all these places where you could go to find nice places to meditate, like they did in ancient India when the monks would just walk around. So it would be a good thing to do in Thailand in the old days, but these days they say it's just a waste of time. That's what even some of those senior monks say, like Ajahn Ganha. He was famous for his Tudong for years and years and years, and then he stopped because he said you can't do it anymore. By the way, the word Tudong is derived from the word dutanga in Pali. Dutanga means basically refers to ascetic practices. So the idea is then you go wandering around and you take on a bit more of these kind of ascetic practices sometimes as you do that. In the only place where Tudong or Dutanga or walking around is still really possible is probably in Sri Lanka, maybe also in Myanmar. I'm not sure about the situation in Myanmar, because there you still have a lot of support around the country, the villages, and also still a lot of jungle and forest. And I have been to Sri Lanka many times and seen some of that jungle, not on Tudong, but because I was there for teaching meditation retreats, and as part of that, I was taken to some of these forest monasteries, and it's really magnificent to see that ancient rainforest. Wow, it's really awesome to see it actually. And you can see why it is so attractive. It's so green, it's so lush, it is so kind of vibrant with life. It's just really, really, really fascinating. Yeah. Yeah. I remember one of the things that they say in the suttas, they would kind of go in the forest and then they would find a good place to meditate and they would stay there, because that was actually possible. But that probably would be difficult in the case here in Germany. If you can't stay in the wild, that means that you always have to kind of end up in a house somewhere. So that wouldn't really be that sort of thing wouldn't be convenient in that case. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Dear Ajahn, what has been the biggest suffering in your life that has led to the biggest awakening? Thank you for your inspirations. Oh, yeah, this is an interesting point because just because you become a monastic doesn't mean that everything kind of becomes really easy, yeah? Life is still life. A monastery is still a microcosm of the world outside. The people are still people in a monastery. Monks still have defilements and do stupid things, and I'm sure the same thing is true for the nuns. So just because you enter a monastery doesn't mean that you enter a completely different world. It is still largely the same kind of problems you have outside. So, sometimes you have to deal with very difficult people. Yeah, this can be one of the really hard things in monastic life, dealing with difficult people. And one of what you learn from that is basically you learn, first of all, my idea was always, okay, this is a difficult situation. What am I going to do? Am I going to run away? Should I go to another monastery? Or what should I do? So I always decided, no, I'm going to stay. I'm going to try to find a solution to this. And so what you learn is always more compassion, more understanding of other people. Because the only way to deal with a difficult person really is to have compassion and understanding and trying to see maybe their side of things, understanding how they are, why they are the way they are. So it is always, instead of running away from problems, what I have learned is actually, no, face them, stay with them, see if you can deal with them. Because those problems are always going to be the same anywhere you go in the world. You're always going to have to deal with difficult people. Difficult people are everywhere, except for here, of course. But, but difficult people, maybe even here. I don't know. I have, but probably not. But almost everywhere. Yeah. And so when you face it and when you deal with it, you learn so much about yourself. Because in the end, there's only one place you can usually resolve problems, and that is within yourself. I don't take that too far, though, because sometimes there are problems that are really difficult. Sometimes there are people who are abusive. Sometimes it is right to run away or to leave. If we always face anything, then sometimes we just allow abuse to go on. So there's always a limit to how much difficulty you should accept, especially if people are abusive, especially if there's a power imbalance. Someone has power over you, someone in a high position of authority or something like that, then the abusiveness can get very bad. That you should never allow to happen. But if it is more a thing between equals or whatever, then usually you can learn something from these situations. So people has certainly been a big degree of suffering in my life. Absolutely. Another thing that has been difficult, especially in the early days, is that, sometimes when a monastic life doesn't go well, you kind of start thinking about the world. You think, oh, maybe having a girlfriend would be a nice idea. Yeah, maybe I should kind of go back, and you think about the good old days. Actually, they were bad old days, but you think they are good old days, right? And you think, maybe I should do that. And that is a lot of suffering. When your mind inclines a little bit to the world like that, wow, that is so much suffering. And you kind of have to drag it back again onto the path. And this is one of the reasons why I really like the suttas about overcoming the sensory world. Yeah, the Paṭicca Sutta with all the similes about the downsides of the sensory world, because these are the things that gradually move you in the right direction, in line with the Dhamma, coming into the right direction again. So that can be very problematic. But one of the most important things for me in my monastic life to carry on the Buddhist path is this broad idea that Buddhism is the meaning of life. When I remember coming to that conclusion one day that this actually is the meaning of life, it was like a real eye-opener for me, because I understood that everything else pales in comparison. Everything else tends to be meaningless in comparison. Practicing the Buddhist path is really what it's all about. And if I'm going to practice the Buddhist path, it's going to have to be as a monastic. Why? Well, because that gives you the best possible conditions. I know myself, if I was a layperson, I would be probably doing all kind of silly things. I know my own kind of weaknesses. So being a monastic is really the way to go. That's the way it seemed for me. And then that carries you through all of these issues, all of these problems that you have. So really have a good feeling for Buddhism. Really know what it is about. Get this deep sense that, wow, this really is super duper meaningful. And once you have the feeling that you're doing the most meaningful thing you can, it will carry you through almost any difficulty. Because it's a deep-seated sense that you're doing the right thing with your life. But if you're doing it for more superficial reasons, and many people ordain for more superficial reasons, like you have some suffering in your life that you can't overcome, and you think, Buddhism is the solution, that's not enough, because then once you overcome that suffering, which very often you will, then your cause or your reason for being ordained is actually annulled. There's no reason to be ordained anymore. I'm not suffering anymore. So you kind of disrobe, and I've seen this so many times. But this deep-seated conviction about the teaching is very important. And you gain that by understanding the word of the Buddha. So, there you are. Some of the general about sufferings. Any of the bhikkhunis want to add anything to sufferings in life? You have no suffering? Wow. Okay. No? Okay. All right. Next one. Ajahn, what you said about euthanasia yesterday, does this apply to situations where it happens due to mental illness as well? Euthanasia is possible for certain cases of mental illness in Holland and Belgium, perhaps other countries too. Maybe. I'm not sure. I haven't really considered this very carefully. Mental illness, I guess that means that your life is so unbearable you just would like to die, and sometimes maybe you have some kind of serious schizophrenia. You just kind of really had it with that schizophrenia, and you want to kind of make an end of it all. I don't know what exact mental illness you're talking about here, whether you're talking about depression or what, but maybe that would be acceptable. If you have very severe mental illness, your quality of life is completely down the drain. You can't enjoy existence anymore. You have tried really hard, maybe for a few years. It doesn't change. Medication can't do anything. Maybe. I can't really say yes or no to that answer fully without really understanding exactly what's going on. But to me, it seems potentially the answer is yes. Why should we control the lives of other people? I always find it rather strange that, we say, euthanasia is bad, people have to be alive. But if they want to die, do we have the right to tell them that they have to stay alive? Is that reasonable? I don't think we should be able to tell other people how to live their lives. If they want to do something which doesn't cause any harm for society or other people, why shouldn't people be allowed to do what they think is right? Of course, within limits, within certain boundaries, certain safeguards. Okay, you have to check that they are not just going through a depression and kind of encourage them to live on. Have some safeguards. But in the end, shouldn't we all be responsible for our own lives in a certain way? It seems to me that this is we should give people that freedom. We don't have the right, in my opinion, to tell other people, you must stay alive against your wishes. It's almost like torture, almost. So I think this general idea of allowing people to be in charge of their own lives is generally a good one, as long as we, do it in a reasonable way. Okay, from Zoom. Okay, hello Zoom. Dear Ajahn, you have spoken about the simile of the rain on the mountaintop, and also the simile of the drifting at sea in a boat without oars. Not this retreat, but I do that sometimes. Doesn't that mean we can't actually ensure the rain keeps falling? Aren't we just left to hope that we'll be conditioned to keep the rain falling? Yes, that is ultimately what it means. Ultimately, it means that you need the conditioning to ensure that you listen to the Dhamma. It may well be that some conditioning in you stops you from listening to the Dhamma, and then the rain stops falling, and that conditioning is a problem. And that's why I make this point. I make this point that you need that Dhamma to listen to it. You need to come back to it all the time. Otherwise, the conditioning is going to stop. And that conditioning, hopefully, will encourage the other conditioning, which will make you listen to the Dhamma. Yeah. So then, kind of conditioning, conditions, and it kind of it becomes this enormous, this kind of loop of conditions causing each other. But you're right. At the end of the day, we don't have any real rudder. There's nothing there to ensure that we will carry on with the Buddhist teachings. Yeah. We can disrobe, we can end up drifting into something completely different. And of course, that is going to be problematic. So that's why it is so important to kind of realize that danger of always drifting away. Okay, let me keep on coming back to these teachings. Let me understand that the conditioning process is so important to enable this to carry on in the future. Yeah, so understanding your own conditioning, that's another conditioning here. That understanding is another conditioning here. So you try to encourage the positive conditioning. You assume that you have some kind of insight into what is good conditioning and bad conditioning, and then you ensure that you have as much of the good conditioning as possible. It's all conditioning ultimately, but there's also one of the conditioning is wisdom. So if you have wisdom as a conditioning, you will allow yourself to condition more in the right direction here. Okay. That's Ajahn Gandha, by the way. He says, okay. In English? Okay. Next question. Next question. So, yeah. So he has to repeat himself, you mean? Otherwise it gets too short. Otherwise just okay is too short. Yeah, so okay. Anyway. Thank you. Okay, you talked about Paṭicca Buddhas who do not have a teacher and do not teach. How have they become enlightened with no teacher and no teaching here? Thank you for the wonderful energy in transmission. Okay. Well, this is exactly like the Sambuddha, the Buddha Gautama. They also, or Sambuddhas also become enlightened without a teacher. So, okay, the point is that occasionally there are people who have developed in the right way through cause and conditions. Just like in our society, we see some people are really kind, some are not so kind. Some people get meditation quite easily, some don't. We are all developed to certain different levels. And some people are developed really highly just through random cause and conditions. And if they are put in the right situations, with maybe the right society to support them, by giving alms and all of these kind of things, then that breakthrough becomes possible because of those cause and conditions. But it's very rare for those cause and conditions to come together. And there is no path to ensure that it happens. And because there is no path, and it's just cause and conditions, it means that it's not something you can decide to do. I want to be a Paṭicca Buddha. I want to be a Sambuddha. So that's why I think this whole idea of the Bodhisattva ideal, I think it's just personally, I think it is a big mistake to think there is a Bodhisattva path. There are Bodhisattvas, but no Bodhisattva path. If anyone had the right to talk about the Bodhisattva path, it would have been the Buddha. He didn't teach the Bodhisattva path, so presumably there is none. It's dangerous to rely on some kind of later anonymous scripture to think that there is such a path when there is no such indication by the Buddha. So that is what I say, and other people might disagree, but that's still what I say. Venerable, you want to? You don't disagree on that one? You agree on that one? You can. Okay. Ajahn, can you please talk about karma in relation to being born a female or LGBTQIA+ in the patriarchal society, or as a person of color in a racist society, etc., where discrimination and lack of equal opportunities are obvious? Karma in relation to being born a female or LGBTQIA+. It is often said, but this is purely a cultural phenomenon, that being reborn as a woman means you have your karma from the past is not as good as if you've been reborn as a man. But to be honest, I think the differences between a man and a woman are so small. Yes, Yes, you get more discriminated against as a woman. I think that's obvious. Yes, you don't have exactly the same opportunities. I think that's obvious as well. And we should certainly strive to make the society more equal. I think that's always a very good thing. Not because we want to use all our resources in a good way as well. I think that's makes sense that we should all be given the same opportunities. But still, it is very small difference. If you compare an animal to a human being, well, then the difference is really big. Yeah, but a woman and a man, I mean, the differences are very, very small. And so I don't think that has anything to do with rebirth. I think that has much more to do with just our inclination in the mind. If you are used to being a woman, very likely you will want to be a woman also in a future life. So you continue being reborn as a woman because you are used to that idea. You have a certain attachment to being a woman, so you carry on. If same thing if you're a man, you have a certain attachment to being a man, so you carry on being a man. And then sometimes things change. Yeah, maybe you see, maybe there's some reason why you want to change gender, whatever that is, and then you change gender. And sometimes your sexuality may not change when you change gender, and that's one of the reasons why you end up being gay in the next life. You change gender, but you haven't changed your sexuality. So these are some of the reasons. LGBTQIA, is that a result of bad karma? I don't know. I think probably not. I think the difference still are small enough not really to be considered bad karma. I think it's more likely to be just a difference in mental state, in what we are looking for, in how we are relating to the world. I think that is much more likely than having to do with bad karma. It is like, sometimes people say, I get really sick. Is that because of bad karma? I had a heart attack. Is that bad karma? Probably not. You get a heart attack because that's what human beings get. You get reborn as a human being. You get heart attacks every now and again. You break a leg every now and again. You lose your job every now and again. You get divorced every now and again. You die early every now and again. Is dying early the result of bad karma? Not necessarily. Maybe it can be in certain situations, but very often it's just the nature of human life that sometimes you die young. Yeah, why? Because of accidents, because of the lightning strikes, because of volcanoes, because of whatever, illnesses. In fact, the Buddha says specifically that illnesses are not necessarily due to bad karma. They're just due to what happens in the body sometimes. So I don't think we should relate many of these things to bad karma. Maybe there are certain situations where your life is really bad. Maybe you are really severely handicapped, both physically and mentally, for example. Maybe especially mentally handicapped. Maybe that can be the result of bad karma. Yeah, because maybe you have been, they say that if you are, for example, you drink too much in one life, it may affect your mental life in the future. Yeah, and that kind of makes sense if you are really addicted to alcohol or whatever. So in extreme examples, it may be due to bad karma. But I think a lot of these things are just life in general. It's very hard to draw a line exactly where karma begins and where it's just ordinary humanity. But usually it takes quite extreme situations. I say that's my idea of this, and it's quite clear in the suttas that the idea that everything we do in life is due to karma is a massive exaggeration. It isn't like that. A lot of our experience in life are due simply to the fact that we are born as human beings, and these are things that you can expect in the human realm. All right. You want to add something to that, Venerable? Venerable, you want to add something to that? No. Okay. Okay. Please let me know if you'd like to add something to any of these questions, and I will pass it on to you. What does it mean to share the merits of our practice, and do we share the merits after each meditation? The idea of sharing merits is usually done after an act of generosity. You give something somewhere. That's usually when it is done, and then you share the merit especially with your ancestors and your parents who passed away, or family members who passed away. That is usually what it means. And the way it works is that if you have done something good, done an act of kindness, you've done an act of charity or whatever, given something somewhere, And then you say in your mind's eye, you say that I do this on your behalf. Yeah, my mother and father who passed away. Actually, my mother's still alive, but my dad has passed away. My sister maybe, or my relatives. I share this with you. This act of kindness that I've been doing now. Could be including keeping the precepts perhaps, but usually it is done in connection with an act of charity. And if they are still around, if they are kind of in the ghost realm or whatever, yeah, still hanging out there, and you say this and they have a connection with you, they may be able to feel your intention. Yeah, because this is what you can often do when you are in different realms. You can actually have more mind-to-mind relationship. And this is then, they might feel really happy that you are thinking of them, yeah, and doing something for them. Yeah, may you be well and happy. I'm doing this on your behalf. And when you do that, what you're doing really is giving them a boost of energy, a boost of kindness coming from you. And if they can feel that, well, that may give them a kind of happiness which takes them out of a miserable realm. If you are in a ghost realm, it means you're miserable. Feeling happiness is not really compatible with the ghost realm, so straight away you disappear from the ghost realm. So this is kind of the idea of sharing merit. Not really sharing anything, you're just letting them know that you still care for them. You want to do something kind towards them. That's really what it means. So it's a very good thing to do. It's one of the beautiful things that we do in Buddhism that allows us even to be kind to those people who have passed away. That's how I understand it. There's a nice sutta in the Agutta 1091 or something like that, where the Brahmin Janusoni goes to the Buddha and he says to the Buddha, is it true that you can share merit with your ancestors? The Buddha said, yes. And is that all ancestors? No, says the Buddha, it's only those who have been born in the specific realm, in the ghost realm. The paṭicca-samuppāda is called in the sutta as the realm of the ghosts. And then the Brahmin said, well, what if none of my relatives have been born as patas in the ghost realm? And then the Buddha answered, it is impossible, it is inconceivable that through this long samsara you will have no relatives in the ghost realm. Guaranteed you will have relatives in the ghost realm. So whenever we do an act of charity on behalf of someone in our family, someone will always receive that. And that's kind of nice, isn't it? Someone will always be beneficiary of that thing we're doing. And this is why we've got into this habit of sharing merit, but do it from your heart. Yeah, don't do it as some automatic thing that you just kind of say the words idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyata yo, whatever. Do it, really visualize those relatives and really tell them that I share all the goodness of my life, including any charity I've done. I share it with you, and then it may have some impact. It probably will have some impact. Absolutely will have some impact, said the Buddha. Yeah. Yeah, why not? I think it's a really nice idea, actually, because it is an act of metta in itself to share merit. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, absolutely. Mm. Ah, I see. Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a very nice idea, actually. And then you have a pure heart, you come out of metta, and then you kind of, it's like carrying on with the metta afterwards. Yeah. Mm. Ah, I think it can be both. It can be like what is the antarabhava, the intermediate state before you are reborn. It can be that, but it can also be the actual rebirth in the ghost realm. Yeah, so there's two different things. One is that when you haven't yet been reborn, after you die, it's called antarabhava usually, intermediate existence. And then there is the actual rebirth in the ghost realm, where you become a peta properly. And both of those, I think you can access the merit. Sambhavesi, yeah, the same thing. Seeking existence, yeah, same thing. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Looking for rebirth. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm. Yeah, that's a very controversial topic. It's called antarabhava in the Katavatu in the Abhidhamma Pitaka. It's called antarabhava, intermediate existence, before you get reborn, or sambhavesi, seeking existence. It's one of those very controversial subjects. according to Theravada orthodoxy, there's no such thing. But according to the suttas, I reckon there is. So that's kind of interesting. Anyway. Do you know what I mean? No? No. Okay. Never mind. It's just one of those little things about Theravada versus early Buddhism. Okay. Next one. Do people who commit suicide necessarily go to the hell realm, hungry ghost realm, underworld in the next rebirth or a future rebirth for this destructive act? And I would say no, not at all. Because it depends how you commit suicide, why you commit suicide, the motivation you have. All of these things are very important in this case. So if you commit suicide because your suffering is just so unbearable for some reason, then it is what will decide your rebirth is your karma, and not that suffering, because you just can't take it any longer. It's like having euthanasia. If your physical suffering is so bad, or your mental suffering, schizophrenia or whatever, is so bad, you can't really deal with it, then committing suicide because of suffering is not really bad in itself. You just want to get out of it. Maybe it's even coming from a bit of compassion for yourself. Oh, I can't take it anymore. I just have to get out of this. And then the rebirth will be in accordance with your accumulated karma. So I would say no, it is not automatic at all that you go to a bad destination just because you're committing suicide. But like with everything else, you have to ask yourself, what is the motivation that drives the act of suicide? And sometimes it can be bad, but not necessarily always. So it's important that we don't stigmatize suicide. This is already so stigmatized around the world, and we really shouldn't do that. There's no reason for doing that in Buddhism. Sometimes in Buddhism it is said that if you commit suicide you go to a bad realm, but I don't think there is any evidence for that in the suttas. It is just one of these kind of ideas that seem to have struck us in Buddhism, that kind of become part of the Buddhist idea of the world. But when you look at it carefully, actually there is no evidence for that. I think one of the evidences that is used, it is that it is like destroying life. Because when you kill yourself, you are killing someone, arguably. You're killing yourself. But there's a big difference between killing yourself and killing another person. Because killing another person, they don't want to die. Of course, it's bad. Coming from a bad place. But as I've argued before, if it is euthanasia, it is not bad because the other person does want to die, and you are coming there to maybe just to help. It could be considered good karma. In the same thing for you, if you really had enough and you're acting out of compassion for yourself perhaps, or whatever it is, then of course it is not a bad thing. You're not really killing someone who does not want to die. That is where the problem arises, because you're taking away something that someone wants to have. You are, as we say in English, you are depriving them of life. That is assuming that they want to live. I'm depriving it, taking it away from you. You will be what? Doing it again? Okay, that's an interesting point, actually. So you're saying that if you commit suicide in one life, you will maybe do it again in the future. And I think that's an interesting point, because especially if you commit suicide, maybe, not maybe for the best reasons, or you commit suicide as a way out, maybe, you not really have enough perseverance or whatever, and then next time in your next life, it is easy to do it again because you have a habit of kind of, this is the way out, maybe. So that is, I think, possible in some situations. You make a habit out of committing suicide. So that is, I think, plausible here. All right, dear Ajahn, thank you so much for your Dhamma talks. I found them very inspiring. Question: can you say something about the relationship between metta meditation and satipatthana? So the metta meditation comes in many different levels. There is like the early metta meditation that we try to do, early on in the practice before you have any deep samadhi, and that is really done to purify your mind. You do that to overcome ill will. You do that to have more compassion and care for people and everyone in the world. So it is really part of the process of purifying your mind of negative qualities. A very important part of the metta is not just doing it during meditation, but have metta in your daily life. Seeing people with friendly eyes, trying to act with kindness all the way around, speak with kindness, think with kindness in your daily life. That is really, metta should really be all the time, as much as you possibly can. And then, when you then bring it into your meditation, it will become more powerful. And then the two get a kind of symbiosis, where your ordinary metta in daily life is reinforced by your meditation, and vice versa. And then there is the metta which comes after samadhi. Sometimes you can use metta to enter samadhi as well. So in the same way that satipatthana is a way into samadhi, if you are skilled with metta practice and your hindrances are quite low, you can actually use metta as a samadhi tool. So in that sense, it's kind of parallel with satipatthana. So metta will take you to samadhi. However, the idea with satipatthana, the reason why it is so powerful, is satipatthana is used to inquire into why you can't go deeper. This is why satipatthana is all about looking into the five hindrances, understanding the mind in various ways, the good qualities of mind, the bad qualities of mind, understanding the good and bad feelings. So satipatthana is really an inquiry into why the meditation doesn't go deeper, and it allows you to take the mind all the way to samadhi. If you can enter samadhi with metta, you don't need to do satipatthana. You can just use the metta straight away and go all the way to samadhi. The purpose is always samadhi. The purpose is deep meditation. Whatever way you can acquire or reach that is good. So, and then you can do metta meditation after samadhi. In the suttas, it's interesting, you always have like a hierarchy of meditation. You have the four jhanas, and then the four brahmaviharas are above the four jhanas. And then comes the three immaterial attainments. So in other words, you can build upon the jhanas and then do metta. Or you can do metta that takes you to jhana, which then will be a jhana with extra oomph, perhaps, because you get there through a very pure kind of mind state. So this is how they kind of work together. Metta purifies your mind before deep meditation. Metta can take you to deep meditation if you are skilled in it, and you can use it after deep meditation as well. Satipatthana is a tool to purify your mind if you can't make progress. Any comments, Venerables? No comments? Okay. All right. The Buddha would be happy to have you who can inspire others to be Buddhists. Hopefully the Buddha would at least not be too he would be, it's hard to know what the Buddha would say. He probably wouldn't say all that much. He would probably just, I don't know, he'd probably just take the microphone and take over probably. Get the real Dhamma from the real teacher. That would be really, really nice. Okay, so come to the last question here. Dear Ajahn, thank you for brainwashing us. So now that is the kind of thing I like to hear. That's really good. Pointing out the path to a happier existence. Thank you to all who made this gathering possible. Thank you to our good karma for the opportunity to learn, to pause and to reflect. May all of us, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, stay on the path with perseverance, with love at the bottom. Yes, that is a beautiful sentiment there. We're coming to the end of this retreat. Actually, we should never think that until the end actually is here. It's usually a bad idea. But it is true. These kind of retreats only happen due to the hard work of many people. So it is wonderful. But maybe tomorrow we can do the final kind of thank yous to everyone before we go. But absolutely, this is a very nice sentiment. So that is it for tonight. So let's do the homage to the triple gem. Okay. Very good.